Recession indicators pop up here and there much more often than one would expect, unfortunately. You might have already heard that from someone else or even have experienced it yourself. And thanks to the digital era we live in, we're much more interconnected, and that's why recession becomes a global problem a lot of countries have to deal with. One of the ways it manifests itself is, pardon my French, enchification. Well, I guess I'm gonna use this word way more often than I would like to, so please excuse me in advance. And since I am a cybersecurity researcher, name is a little bit by the way, it's nice to meet you, I want to look into cases of enchification we experience right now in security. This time specifically into gradual downfall of everyday apps due to greed, desire for power, sometimes fear, or input substitution as a result of, geopolitical distresses around the world and inability to do better because of economic decline or, well, other reasons. It depends, and I'm no expert. But either way, if you will, I'd actually like to take a moment to share my thoughts on the reasons behind that before moving on to the actual cases so that you have some food for thought. With lots of countries involved into conflicts and crises, it's safe to say that all of us have to optimize the use of resources based on certain circumstances we have to deal with. It seems quite obvious that in that case, you should save on something less important rather than more important. Surprise, surprise, security is at the very basis of hierarchy of needs. However, it's not as obvious as you might think. You should know that if you've ever participated in bug bounty programs as a bug hunter or as a part of a trash team. The need for security measures must be proven to the business people with money. They are the ones who decide. And most of the times, it actually costs less to pay fines for a data leak than to pay salary to a whole team of security experts, you know. So one of the reasons is always money, economics, or rather a lack of money, and another one is, who would have thought, politics. Due to conflicts, countries try to isolate themselves from an external influence in terms of digital access, which is reasonable considering the scale of control governments have over products created by their citizens and massive waves of activists who do all kinds of stuff to take revenge in a way they can with their skills. The urge of governments to isolate their citizens from foreign applications is understandable, since it's a kind of a security measure indeed. The only problem is that they fail to provide worthy alternatives, or to resist the desire to exploit this opportunity. Fortunately, cybersecurity has always been and will always be about money and power. That's why a job in security is a honeypot for people with rather unstable mental health, but that's a whole other hear me out story. The most prominent and recent examples I'd like to discuss are cases of Telega and Max, most noteworthy Russian messaging apps created quite recently as substitutes for Telegram since it got banned. Turns out that apparently developers of both apps planted several curious features into their products. A few of them look suspiciously like backdoors. Tell you that's nothing new. The world has already seen similar things with most of the popular messaging applications and social media platforms. Let's have a brief look at, really sorry for my tones in advance, Weixin, WeChat, and Xiaohongshu, RedNote, as well as some products of Meta to give you a better idea of the state of things from the great powers. The most prominent security researchers of WeChat and RedNote, to my liking at least, are the ones done by the Citizen Lab team, who have been publishing articles about WeChat for at least 10 years already. WeChat's encryption protocols were proven to introduce weaknesses that exposed them to brute force attacks, forgeries, and data leaks. On top of that, they will code censoring text and images before they get received by the recipient, and no approaches of bypassing that behavior on the client side result in a successful outcome, which ultimately means a WeChat, at least at some point in history, analyzed the literal context of direct messages on the server side. And for media contents, they optimize the process of blocking by calculating the file's hash and doing signature matching, but either way, for every file with no match in the database, they'd have to use some kind of a computer vision technique to analyze it. So congratulations on adding your data to an AI training set without an option to remove it from there, I guess. The problem is, Who knows if they flag your specific account when your message triggers the system? Similar network weaknesses apply to RedNote as well. All of its versions accessed media from RedNote's servers over HTTP, not HTTPS, exposing pictures and videos you to those who'd like to eavesdrop traffic packets while you are connected to the same Wi-Fi hotspot.
Then we can apply the filter HTTP, and this is going to give us a ton of content that is flying over the public internet in clear text, unencrypted. And what kind of content do we have? Well, if we scroll through this, we see, some stream data, so probably the video streams from the application, something about a video. We see a JPEG image.
It also utilizes insufficient encryption when it comes to transmitting devices' metadata. Plus, the researchers came up with a cool attack vector worth mentioning. RedNote's client requests a remote configuration file which specifies locations of local files for the client to look through and a list of words or regex patterns to look for in these files in order to identify rooted or emulated devices. It only takes a couple of hard-coded keys and a little ping with the network to make the client request this configuration file from an arbitrary source and make this source know which files exist on the device and where their context might be. It's also vulnerable to DDoS, so denial of service by complex regex patterns, which makes this device's CPU go crazy. Yeah, I know what some of you might think. Water is wet. You're right, and that's the whole point. As for Meta, there was an interesting talk on the most recent DEF CON called Exploiting Security Side Channels in End-to-End Encrypted Messengers, which described how the timing of message delivery was consistent enough to use this information to collect data on the recipient's activity. Long story short, before the fix, it was possible to craft messages that tricked the protocol into thinking you sent a message or a reaction to a user without actually sending a proper message that will be shown on the recipient's device. And since WhatsApp also did not really implement rate limits to prevent abuse of such pinging at that point, one could send as many crafted messages as they'd like and correlate timing of the responses, figure out the target device's type, operation system, power and connectivity statuses, and etc. You should absolutely check out this talk yourself as well as the research paper. I'll leave links in the description and it's impressive tech-wise.
So let me introduce you to our office dog. He is an iPhone user and we consistently pinged his phone. And we can see that the round trip time, it sits at about 1,500 milliseconds. And very soon he will turn on the screen of the phone. And now he did. We can see that the round trip time of our measurements, that it dropped to at least below 1 second here. So we can differentiate between these two states. And very soon he will turn it off again. Now he did, and we can see that the round trip time again raises to a higher level. So again, it stabilizes at about 1,500 milliseconds. And the third state is the state where the messaging application, so WhatsApp, is in foreground, which he just did right now. So he turned the screen on and opened WhatsApp, and we can see that we get even lower response timing here. So it's below 500 milliseconds. And as soon as the screen is turned off, we can see that it again raises to the baseline, so to the standby level.
And with Meta, since they are a big tech company which is not overtly too governmental, and they definitely have an experienced security team, more than enough resources to afford security, they have bug bounty programs and truly conduct security audits, you are left to wonder if those flaws were left out there by accident. Big companies always want more, and governments also always want more. Like, I do understand that. It's quite difficult to decline such an opportunity. It's too profitable to miss out on. The problem is that it doesn't ever stop. On the contrary, it gets worse. markets for users' data get larger, since, we need big data for the AI and AI-based recommendation systems that will produce sales. But it's one thing when you kind of expect this, as you'll see with Max, and have already seen with applications I've already mentioned, and a whole other thing when it comes as a surprise from a rather down-to-earth developers who you sort of want to trust, as you'll see with Telega. So, Max. Max is a messaging application developed by a big tech company, VK. It is highly invested into, since it is intended to be heavily integrated into services and governmental ecosystems to receive one-time passwords, to act as a step in a two-step verification, and even attest to your data by importing it from governmental resources if you say need to prove your age or identity. Yeah, that's why kids are buying those accounts these days. Researchers looked into the network traffic it produces, analyzed the data it sends, and noticed that Max sends logs with certain events to its servers. Yeah, that's what apps do. However, in that case, the application gathers information on the connectivity statuses of their users. It collects IP addresses and double-checks them against lots of IP APIs, alongside with data on the network operators, the device's VPN status according to their response from native Android API, and even statuses of requests to Telegram and WhatsApp domains. This behavior implies that they probe their user's network to detect the use of a proxy or a VPN, identify this proxy or VPN servers, and include them into ban lists. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but as for today, it's illegal to own such a server if you are a Russian citizen and if it provides access to banned resources, including, for example, Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, they did not implement any secret end-to-end encrypted chats. Guess that's too much to ask for. Instead, there are rumors about another funny feature: keyword spotting in calls. Seems like upon launching, Max also requests a configuration file from its service with a link to fetch a copy of an AI model from. This model was dissected. Right now, it is trained to detect when someone says, "I don't hear." Even though it's currently disabled, it's fun to know that developers can simply edit this configuration file at any moment, so enable this feature or disable it, or replace the keywords altogether without anyone having to go through an update. And since, again, Max encrypts traffic between you and their service rather than between you and the person you communicate with, and they have the keys to decrypt it. Oh, and they also use a modified version of WebRTC, so overall it does not feel good. And that's something you would expect from a big tech company. Telega, though, is a messaging application that was introduced as an alternative to its big brother Max, and is developed by some ordinary people from an ordinary company. It is more of a Telegram client based on Telegram's open source modules than a whole new novel application, and that's why it attracted a lot of users who enjoyed Telegram. It is familiar, it is convenient enough, and since it communicates with original Telegram servers, it has all of the data users had in the official version. Sure enough, researchers find out that Telega, while it almost always operates properly, can replace addresses of Telegram servers with addresses of their own servers in ongoing requests on command. Their client also includes an extra RSA public key, which obviously is not present in the official Telegram version, and which is used to communicate with Telega-owned servers exclusively. So as we can tell, a covert man-in-the-middle feature was deliberately planted into Telega, which allows its owners to read any messages, falsify their contents, and overall do whatever they please with your account. Moreover, according to Telega's configuration, they also disabled the perfect forward secrecy mechanism and secret end-to-end encrypted chats, which doesn't help. And on top of that, they've just added a whole brand new banned list module, which hides banned users, channels, chats, and bots universally. For some reason, a couple of demos or platforms for Telega's content moderators became publicly available for a period of time, so now we know what these modules look like. Oh, and they also use AI to flag and ban content that relates to certain topics or contains certain words. Oh shit, sounds familiar. Developers state this module to be a part of a parental control system. Well, I suppose you can say that about Motherland indeed. Speaking of Telegram clients, by the way, researchers also found out through reverse engineering that another unofficial Telegram client, Nekogram, exfiltrates information on the link between a certain user and the phone number they use in the client, which is not present in the Nekogram source code posted on GitHub. So my point is, it's a pity we can't have nice things anymore. It's a pity that security is a luxury and that people have to fight for basic rights. We should do better, and if we don't, the real state of things should be publicly disclosed and not overlooked, because security breaches simply cannot be deemed okay. Sorry if I invested into your scrolling routine with this video. Might slip a meme here and there to set a better mood for the rest of the day. Last thing I want to say is that I listed links to all of the researches I mentioned throughout the video in the description, so check them out to get a fuller picture. Stay safe out there. Thank you very much for coming. Bye bye.